Hey guys, I'm Mark, and today I'm at Valley View Farms in Cockeysville, Maryland, which is just north of Baltimore. Valley View is a really renowned plant nursery in this area, and they've got the largest selection of houseplants that I know of. With me is Carrie. She's worked
Hello.
she's worked at Valley View for a number of years.
Since before Mark was born, but we won't get into that.
Well, she's a really cool person, and she knows a ton about plants. This is going to be the third part of a three-part series. We already covered the basics of house plants and also some the proper plant for the proper place in part two. So this will be the third part of that series.
All right.
And we're just going to do general care, maintenance, watering and fertilizing. We're also going to cover repotting, soils, drainage, and then pest control at the end.
Okay.
That was a mouthful.
Well, one of the things that we didn't really discuss before that was just general maintenance. So we have people going around our greenhouse all day, and they're just taking out yellow leaves, weeds, anything that would diminish the plant, anything that might show up there that doesn't look good. And they all have little plant scissors they just cut them off with.
So just groom them, keep the plant, keep the dead leaves off of them. Would they harbor insects?
Sometimes they will. So if you have a lot of leaf litter, you want to get rid of that. And at the same time, when you're doing that, go ahead and check your leaves. Your insects, if you have any, are usually going to be under the leaf, down around the stem. Sometimes with something like aphids in the spring, they might be up by the buds. So just keep an eye on that.
Sure.
But I think the most important thing we can talk about is watering, right?
Right, absolutely.
So when these growers grow these plants, they grow them in pots that have excellent drainage like this.
Right.
And then our customers come in and they find this beautiful pot that has zero drainage.
Yep.
They pop this plant in there. Sometimes they transplant it all together.
And you're putting it in a swimming pool sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you want the plants to be able to drain. When we talk about soils and things, we'll do that a little bit, but you want to have like 50% mineral matter, 25% air space, 25% water space.
Okay.
And what we often lose in our container gardens, especially in houseplants, is that air space.
Okay.
So to keep that going, you can do something like this, like just keep that plant in the grower's pot and put it in the cache pot. When you water it, take it over to the sink or into the shower, water it, let it drain, and then put it back.
Let it drain, then put it back in the pot.
Yep.
Okay.
If you're doing it in a plant here that like has a saucer attached or something on it, and the plant's gotten too big, I have a Norfolk Island pine in about a 20-inch pot. I'll water it, let it drain. Sometimes my dog takes care of the extra water, but I can also like take a turkey baster and get that excess water out of there.
Okay, so you don't want the water to be sitting in here for a while, just so the plant's not down in it. I noticed this pot has like a raised ring on the inside.
Yep.
So that sort of helps, I guess, to keep the pot suspended out of the water a little bit too.
That definitely helps. And if you've got like I want to say concrete planters or ceramic planters, and you're keeping it out on a deck or on a porch, like I have a slate porch or whatever, get some pot feet under it.
Okay.
Because you want to lift that up from the ground, or it's like it's being in a container all over again, because you're blocking up the exit hole for the water with slabs or whatever under there.
Right.
So do keep those up so the water has a place to go.
Well, sometimes you should probably check the drainage holes too periodically to make sure they're not clogged. Like some plants will even clog the holes with their roots.
Yeah, and one of the telltale signs when people come in with a planter is they'll have this planter, will have like this white stripe all the way around.
Okay.
And you touch it and it's salt. So the salts have, water's evaporated and it's left salts behind. So we know that that plant's been sitting in water for some time. And again, what happens is those salts then become available to the plant's roots, and that dries up the roots, and that can kill them and also help just take the plant down in health.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So drainage.
Drainage, you got that.
Okay. And then a clay pot. What about the difference between a clay pot and a plastic pot? Because the clay pot seems like it could pull moisture away too, just by nature of it.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I mean, if you're a person that tends to be an overwaterer, I'd go with the clay pot.
Because it'll just draw from all directions.
Yep, it's really great with that. But again, just make sure you do have some way for anything to get out of the exit hole.
Sure.
But it definitely helps for anything. And again, I like these for houseplants. And with cacti, there's something about this orangey terracotta with the green. That's
like the Southwest
pleasing.
Sort of feel even too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cacti certainly.
So that's a great way to go. And then look at the depth too. So we know our succulents tend to have a shallower root system than other plants, so they go great in a planter like this.
Yes. They don't need to go real deep.
Yeah, forcing bulbs is a great pot for that too.
Yeah, aesthetically, the shorter shape for the succulents, I think that would look pretty cool.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Let's explain, what are these?
Well, these are plant saucers. So, in my house, if I have a fancy pot, I don't want my floors to get all wrecked. So I'll often put those on the bottom.
Okay.
But they also do catch whatever water. But you can also add, we talked about this before, you can add some pebbles to that, put a smaller pot on top of that, and the water that's in those pebbles can come up and create some humidity for your plants.
Okay, so we'll go over that again because I think that's really cool.
Yep.
It's clay pebbles.
Any pebbles.
Any pebbles.
Any pebbles,
Any
yeah.
pebbles that they have kind of, they're sort of porous.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you can really just use regular pebbles and keep water in it.
And just by them having a film of water on
Yeah.
the pebbles, the stones themselves.
And that'll help keep it. And the other thing is what I'll do is if I have a lot of smaller plants, like right now I have some smaller plants that I'm starting, so I just got a big saucer, put pebbles in there, and I just put like five planters in that, and they get that humidity from the saucer to keep it going.
The pebbles just sort of just evaporate the water slowly up
Yep.
and it creates a little microclimate around the plant.
Exactly,
for
but not
humidity.
enough so it's pulling up, the roots are pulling up the water,
Right.
just enough that the air surrounding it is moist.
That's a really neat
more
trick.
moist.
Okay. Fertilizer, as far as fertilizers go, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, take a break from most of your fertilizers November to March for most of your houseplants.
While they're dormant.
Yeah, now some things aren't. I think jade plants aren't dormant, and some of the like black roses are not. So you could keep going with that. But even with that, I tend to feed at less than the recommended rates on here. But
Okay.
what's nice about some of these, I like the liquid foods. This is one called Monty's. This mixes a teaspoon per gallon, so this lasts you a really long
wow.
time. Yeah. The Peters and Miracle Grow types are good. The water solubles are great, but make sure you're mixing it up regularly. I don't know how if it's happened to you, but it happens to me here all the time. But I get down to the bottom of the jug and it's just a blue slurry.
It's because it just settles out
Right.
eventually.
Right.
Okay.
Now I also like Osmocote. That's my lazy gardening technique. Anything I plant, anything in pots, anywhere, I put Osmocote on it. So when I forget to fertilize it, I know that that's in there. So
It's
this
just like a little shaker, like
Yep.
little, almost like mustard seeds.
Yeah, and they're really
Probably
good
looks
because I think it's at 70 degrees. They usually last about 4 months. If you get real hot, they might all release at one time and give you some problems with some plants. But in general, they're pretty
okay.
good. Yep.
Okay. As far as like shelf life for fertilizers in general, do some last more than others, or is generally a few years, or will they last for 20 years? Or
I don't honestly know. And I have some old Osmocote, but I think as long as you keep most of it at room temperature,
Keep it
you're
nice and
probably
cool.
pretty good. Yeah.
Don't keep it out in the shed where it becomes 115
Exactly.
degrees.
Yep.
And then
So
back
I
down
felt
again.
pretty comfortable. But like anything, it's like if I go into my spices and they look ancient, it might be time to switch them out.
Sure.
What's nice about in this business is people give you samples to try. So
Yeah, you always kind of have a fresh
you
stock
always
on
have
hand.
something handy, yeah.
Sure.
And some are really stinky. But we're also talking about some of the organics like fish emulsion and seaweed extract and all that. Those are all very good too. And they have a lot, they don't just have the NPKs that we're looking for, the major nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash that all the fertilizers have. They have an awful lot of trace elements, humates, and other things that are good for the plants.
Yeah,
I want to say like this is dinner. But some of these will give you all your vitamins and everything for the rest of the week.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a, for the organic stuff, some people are kind of afraid of it having like an odor. Is there anything you could do about that? Like when you put
Smell
it on?
it first. Some of it is terrible. Some
Some
of it
of
has a rough odor. So just kind of watch that or ask the salesperson.
Yeah.
Most of us know which ones are bad, which ones aren't.
Okay.
Um,
You could even probably mix it in a little bit like with your fingers, like get it underneath the surface, I think.
And sometimes it's only bad the first day you put it on. It's a lot like the deer repellent sprays. You
Yeah.
know, they're
Oh,
pretty,
yeah, some of them
pretty
are
bad.
awful.
But after a day or two, they settle down.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, we've got soil here. I want to talk about that maybe because we were talking about drainage.
Yeah, this is, I put the weeds right in there, sorry. So the soil that you buy in bags, you want to make sure you use something that says potting mix. Or potting soil is okay, but usually you'll see potting mix. And it's different than soil. The garden soils we use tend to be much heavier. They have a lot less airspace. This is usually a mixture of peat moss. It has some bark in it, sometimes some charcoal for filtration, and perlite.
Okay.
And this just all works together to give you a good solid.
It's not too coarse, not too fine, but it's it's far different from something like that.
Yeah.
Now let's what's an example that I would use something like that for?
This you'd use for orchids, and a lot of the things that just don't really that really need airspace and not
Okay.
as much water space. So
Drain through pretty quickly
Exactly.
and keep a lot of air in the
So go
situation
through
around the
fast.
roots.
And if you went in and you looked at the soils that we had for seedling, it's going to be much finer than this is, so you can drop the seed and it's going to be primarily milled and peat, and it'll be a little bit different. But
little
this
more
is good.
delicate.
Now when you get this in a bag, it usually has a wetting agent in it, so it's easy to water the first time. By the time you've had it in that pot for a year or two, that wetting agent has really broken down and it's harder to re-wet the peat. So you want to make sure when you do water that it's getting wet all the way through, because you can have a lot of dry spots. And if you say I've just repotted a plant and you've taken that 6-inch pot, put it in like a 10-inch pot, your tendency is to water, all the water is going to go to that outside. And you're going to rot some of the roots that are going out there, but at the same time that central part of the plant is going to get enough water. So watch that when you do that.
So try to get a pretty consistent mix between what's inside and what's in the outer ring.
Exactly, yep.
Could you mix the two together in some cases, create a coarser mix?
You could. I don't know what offhand you'd use it for, but there are maybe some ferns that would be good for that have like a staghorn fern or something that's epiphytic. That also counts more. We do a lot of things with a bonsai mix because it's real gritty and great for conifers and trees. So if we're putting plants in a smaller pot where we really have to count on good drainage, we'll use a coarser mix like that.
Okay.
So we'll play with all of that.
And in general, I mean, this is just, the finer the soil is, the longer it's going to hold water.
It doesn't necessarily need to be finer. In some cases, it almost needs to be coarser. But the peat is what's going to hold on to the water first. The bark is going to kind of pick it up second, and then the perlite will pick it up if it stays in there for a while.
Okay.
And then it'll kind of dry out in reverse.
Okay.
But what's nice about using bark and peat in the mixes, oops, I'm sorry, this was created in the 60s as a mix out of Cornell University. And what's great, so what's great about this is that it does drain well, it keeps the air spaces, and you can replenish it. So I can add some new soil next year, and it'll be okay.
Any other suggestions for if you're repotting or potting up?
I think the main thing, let's pull that plant out of the pot. I don't even know what it looks like, so this will be a test.
Out of this pot?
Yep. Let's pull it out of that pot and we'll take a look at the roots. So this doesn't have a whole lot of roots on it, so it probably doesn't need repotting, but we looked at that like peace lily earlier. And just when you do it, just tease out the roots a little bit so that it doesn't stay growing in that circly circle and they have a chance to spread out.
Yeah.
So watch that when you first repot it, give it a good shot of water so that those roots are all settled and going in the right direction.
Okay.
And that'll help. And usually you're going to add new soil to the bottom and to the sides of the plant. Every once in a while you had to add a little to the top, but not much, because usually the roots like to be towards the top so they can again get air and water a little bit easier. But it's like watering anything else. You do want to water. You don't need to water frequently as much as you have to deeply. So the roots are going down and becoming longer to get to some of that water. Whereas if you if every time it was a little tiny dry, you went and watered it, all those roots are going to stay up by the top.
Right.
So you really want to train the roots down like you do your plants out in the garden.
So a good soak, less frequent.
Exactly.
But never like super wet.
Right. You don't ever want it to be sopping wet.
Right.
Moist like a squeezed out sponge for some of the ones that like moisture. And you'll notice, you've gone into a greenhouse, I don't know about your growing greenhouse, but here every once in a while pick up a pot and you can just squeeze the water out of it. You don't want to do that. So we just watch that and kind of police each other on how we're watering to make sure we're not overdoing it.
Okay. What about how about some general things about pests?
Okay.
What are some like really common pests, I guess, that people would, good chances if they're going to encounter pests, what do you think they might be?
You're going to see aphids on some things, and they're pretty easy to get rid of just with an insecticidal soap, sometimes just with water, or one of the horticultural oils, whether it's neem or the regular hort oil. That just kind of suffocates them. The other thing we see is fungus gnats, and it's almost always because plants have been kept too wet, because fungus gnats won't live in in dry soil.
Right.
So as long as you let it dry out, you have pretty good shape.
Okay.
But you can also treat the top of that soil with either neem or the regular oil, and that suffocates the larva.
You can spray it right on the soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you don't want to overuse any of these because they are going to, if you're spraying the stomates of the plants, they're not going to be able to open and close as much, so the plant's not going to be as healthy. So you don't want to overdo it. You want to kind of time that out right.
You don't want to interfere with the plant breathing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Other problems you might have, mealybugs. I hate them. Mealybugs, it depends. I mean, ideally, you find that before it becomes a problem. So you might find one or two on a leaf and you'll just pluck it and throw it away and no big deal. The best way to take care of mealies is to mess with their mouth parts. It's almost like taking a toothbrush or something and just kind of rubbing it so that they can't feed anymore. Oil will help in that it'll help them suffocate their coat, but it's kind of tough. They're tough pests to get rid of.
Okay.
And if you've had citrus, maybe you've had scale before.
I don't think we've had scale, not that I've seen.
Then, okay. So again, you check with some of the oil sprays and they're going to be good. Now, the only time I recommend this other one, this is systemic houseplant control. So I'll have people that did a nice job with mandevilla or some of these palms or hibiscus in the summer, they want to bring them in. This is just a systemic insecticide. It's going to work through the plant's roots up into the leaves.
That's what systemic is, or stemic. Systemic.
Systemic, and
Right.
it's going to protect the plant from anything that would bite into it, basically.
Yeah.
What it's not good for is if you have pets. This is imidacloprid, so it is something that can hurt pets. You also don't want to use it outside, because in Maryland we have the Pollinator Act, and we don't want to hurt our pollinators, so we tend to stay away from systemics now outside.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
Okay. General rule of thumb, like for, let's say you have your plants outside during the summertime. Now it's fall, it's time to bring them in. Is there any, other than acclimating them to the shade that we talked about earlier, should I spray them with anything as a precaution, or
It's not a bad
rinse
idea.
them off?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to rinse them off. I usually do apply a light oil spray on them because that takes care of most of the things I have. I will occasionally use a systemic just because I know a plant has had problems throughout the summer, maybe, whether it's aphids or something else. So I might use that in some spaces, but again, I'm not going to use it around my pets. I'm not going to use it, where anybody is going to have access to that plant.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just be careful with it.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing, this is fun, just because for people that aren't growers, you guys see these all the time as growers, right?
Sure. Little yellow cards.
Yep, the little yellow, oops, I'm making a mess here. But these little yellow sticky traps, and I'm not saying they're that effective, but they tell you where the problem is, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can go through these, this is like a fly paper almost.
Yeah,
So
it's like a sticky Post-it note, looks like, and they just they just stick to it. They fly to it. You can understand where you're going to have aphids or white
there we
flies
go.
or things like that.
Yeah, and so it's part of what most of us use in the industry called integrated pest management. So if we see 3 or 4 white flies on those in our poinsettia crop, we'll walk away and go, yeah, it's all right. But if we go back and next day there's 100, we're going to treat them.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just fun to watch.
You know when the threshold is for when you need to take some action.
Exactly.
Anything else at all?
Not really. I
just
think if
about?
you keep an eye on grooming the plant, you're going to take care of a lot of your problems as you have them. So this year we might have cicadas or something that might be an issue. We're going to have to watch out for that. Another year we might have. I know sometimes when the weather outside goes from nothing to 50 or 70, all of a sudden we have aphids. So just management by walking around.
Will the cicadas actually get into the houseplants, into the soil? Or,
I don't think they're going to get
what
inside, but if you have them outside and then bring them in, you want to make sure they're all gone. But I think they're going to be later in the season enough that it shouldn't be anything to worry about.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we covered some pretty good basics for pest management. We talked about water, drainage, how to pot things, what to look out for. I think that's a good way to wrap up this segment.
Excellent.
Okay, so this was a good one. Again, I hope you liked our video. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And as always, thank you for watching.